Everybody, by harmonium. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baladhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baladhari. Yasodanandana Prajatanaranjana. Yasodanandana Prajatanaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baladhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baladhari. Yasodanandana Prajatanaranjana. Yasodanandana Prajatanaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharne Nivasesha Sunyavadi Paschatade Satarne. So, anyone here for the first time? Never been to the Hare Krishna temple? Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a good experience. I'm sure you will. So, we use the Bhagavad Gita, Song of God, as it is. There are many versions of Bhagavad Gita. in the bookstore. But there's only one Bhagavad Gita as it is. And this is our main scripture. You could call it the Hindu Bible. But this is the direct word of God himself, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the difference is that our spiritual master has made commentary on every verse from his own personal realization. There's no speculation, there's no, this is my idea. He's not presenting his own idea, but he's presenting what Krishna meant when Krishna spoke. A pure devotee has no business doing anything for himself, but he's doing everything for Krishna. And as a devotee, Srila Prabhupada wrote his purports to explain what Krishna really meant. Now, how can someone say that? So, well, it's my book, I can say what I want, and that's the problem, that there are many Bhagavad Gitas out there with explanations by people who are not devotees. And how can you, it's like if I write a book and you write some commentary on what you think I said, that's not very good. But if I give my commentary on my own book, or if someone who is my representative gives a commentary, then listen to that. So this Bhagavad Gita as it is, if you read this book, your life will change. At least that was my experience. You will find things in Bhagavad Gita that you won't find in other places, in other scriptures. Not that we are against any other scripture, but there's more information. And it's all complete in one place. Like they say, when you have a nice river, you can do so many things. You can swim in it. You can wash your clothes. You can use it for cooking and bathing. So, Bhagavad Gita as it is, if you don't read anything else, this one book is sufficient because it's the last word. Okay, so anywhere you read, there is a story. There's a background, how this came to be. This conversation between Krishna and his friend and devotee Arjuna took place 5,000 years ago, and the conversation was recorded. It's very interesting how it came to be. If you've ever heard of remote viewing, so the government has this program, and it's known that you can train people to understand what's going on in another part of the world without actually going there. And the intelligence department has people that they can understand what's going on in foreign countries without actually having to go there and be in danger and all that kind of thing. So Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, but at the time, the king, who was Dhritarashtra, was sitting in his palace, just like I'm sitting on this Vyasasana. He was sitting on his throne, and he had a sage, Sanjaya. And Sanjaya was sitting there. So this sage had the benediction that he had this ability to see what was going on this battlefield some distance away. So when Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, Sanjaya, the sage, was telling the king what was going on with the conversation. Very interesting. So he was given that benediction by his guru. So Bhagavad Gita is this conversation, just as the battle was about to begin. There's a world war, the Fratricida War. It was a family war. And Arjuna is Krishna's friend. So it's understood that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when Krishna came, not many people actually knew who he was. only a handful of people actually understood that he was the supreme God himself. So, under the pretext of this fratricidal war, what was actually going on was that there were many demons, demonic forces in the world, kind of like what we have today. Demonic forces in the world trying to take over, do all kinds of things, atheistic things, trying to suppress belief in God, and all kinds of atrocities were going on. So, under the pretext of this battle, Krishna spoke this ultimate wisdom for the benefit of mankind. It was a setup. Krishna set up Arjuna, put him under illusion temporarily. Because whatever Krishna was speaking to Arjuna, Arjuna already knew it. So what happened was that in this war, Arjuna had to fight against those who were his friends. His teacher, his military mentor, his grandfather, his cousins, his brothers, all kinds of people that you can just imagine in your life. And suddenly you're on the other side, or they're on the other side. And as a warrior, you don't run away from a fight. That's the code of being a warrior. If somebody challenges you, let's get it on, okay? And they have that spirit, okay? Let's get out in the alley, let's, you know. Okay. Previously, leading up to this war, they were challenged, Arjuna had 4 other brothers, and they were challenged to a contest of dice, a gambling contest. Well, even though they knew that the dice were rigged, right? It's known that you can do this. You can put certain weights in it. So they knew the dice were crooked. But they couldn't deny the opportunity for a challenge. And what happened was they gambled away their whole kingdom. In fact, they gambled away their wife. Okay. So this is the Kshatriya spirit. So in the end, the war was not really wanted. Arjuna didn't want to fight. So he told Krishna, he said, you know, take me to the front. Take my chariot, because Krishna was driving Arjuna's chariot. And Krishna had declared that I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to take part. I'm not going to take up weapons, is what he said. Okay. But he said, I'll drive your chariot, and I'll give you a little hints here and there, right? So Arjuna's just about to start the fight, and he's like, okay, wait. Take me to the front so I can see again who I'm going to fight with. And, you know, are they really, really determined to fight? Okay, this is the pretext of the story of how Krishna came to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna drove the chariot up to the front and he says, there you go, Arjuna. There's your grandfather and your teacher and your military mentor and all your friends. And Arjuna freaked out. He said, well, wait a minute. I'm not so sure I want to do this. So he started thinking of all these excuses why I shouldn't fight, right? He said, first of all, even if we win, who are we going to enjoy the spoils with? These are all our family members. How are we going to enjoy? And we'll be, our spoils will be tainted with blood. Just for the sake of a kingdom, we're going to kill all these people? I'm not interested in the kingdom. And he put it down his bows and arrows, and he said, Govinda, Krishna, I'm not going to fight. But I can understand that I need some help. And so I need you to kind of straighten me out. So now, never mind we're friends, I want you to be my guru. I want you to be my spiritual master. I want you to give me the best advice. What should I do? What should I do? I'm totally, my mouth is drying up. I'm scared. I feel like running off to the forest. And so this is the pretext of Krishna speaking to Arjuna, the wisdom that we, all the human beings on the planet, then and into the future, today, 5,000 years later. Okay? What book do you know of that's 5,000 years old that has wisdom like this? Okay, and most of you know something of Bhagavad Gita. So, first thing that Krishna says to Arjuna, he says, you're speaking like a learned man. Because he was telling, the women will, if their husbands are all killed, they'll have no one to protect them, and then, someone will take advantage of them, and then there'll be unwanted children, and he came up with all these good ideas, moral ideas. Okay? And we're going to talk about what's good. This is the kind of the theme. So Krishna says to Arjuna, he said, first of all, you're talking like a fool while speaking, so-called learned words, big words, but what you're saying is ridiculous. Okay? First of all, the soul can't be killed. The body and the soul are different. As a man grows from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly the soul gets another body after death. And someone who's sober, someone who's intelligent understands that. That you might be so-called killing your grandfather or your friends or whatever. They're not killed. Their bodies are maybe killed. But they don't disappear. We're all eternal. Never was there a time when I did not exist, never, nor you, nor any of these kings. He tells Arjuna. So he, in this way, he begins speaking the wisdom, the information that we need to hear. Okay, under the pretext of this great story, which is called the Mahabharata, all leading up to this particular moment when Krishna can speak what he wants to speak. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita is the direct word of God himself. And he speaks about all kinds of different self-realization processes, different kinds of yoga, karma yoga, and Hatha yoga, and karma yoga, and all kinds of different things about this world and about nature. And in the end, Krishna says, okay, I've told you all this. Okay, never mind. Just surrender to me. Just give up all the varieties of religiousness and just surrender to me. Okay. Don't worry about your karma. Don't worry about anything. Don't fear. I will protect you from all of that. Okay. So, really, what I wanted to talk about was what is good. What is good? What we have our ideas. What's good? If I help an old lady across the street, if I dig a well, plant some trees, or I do some welfare work or something like that. Okay. Arjuna had plenty of good ideas, but Krishna rejected them. Why? Why would Krishna provoke Arjuna to fight in a war? Supposedly for Arjuna's benefit, because if he wins the battle, if he wins the war, then he gains the rulership of the world. But Krishna didn't. That was not the purpose. That was going to be a side effect. Krishna had a greater plan. That's the real secret. That in our lives we have things that we want. If I do something good, right? Who's going to get the benefit? Okay, maybe you help somebody. But you don't know that by the law of karma, you will change positions. And you'll be in difficulty, and he'll come along and save you. That's the way it works. So the law of karma it's like a stick and a carrot. On one hand, you have good karma, you get good result. And bad karma, you get bad result. But that's all within this world. And what do we have here in this world? We have death, we have disease, old age, and rebirth. We don't want to talk about birth, it's too traumatic, we don't remember. But this world is temporary, and even if you get to go to the highest planet, it's not eternal. So what's really good? Okay, if I'm in a prison and I go to another better prison, I go from the, what the max, these max prisons, and maybe you get to go to Leavenworth or whatever it is, or maybe you become a trustee. The demigods living on the higher planets are kind of like trustees, because they go along with the program, right? They're serving Krishna, but they enjoy, and their lifestyle, the standard of living is off the charts. Okay, and they live a very long time, but it's not eternal. There's nothing in this world that's eternal. Even Lord Brahma, the highest being in the whole universe, when Hiranyakashipu said, "I want to become eternal," and I said, "Wow, sorry, I'm not eternal." Well, if you give me this benediction and that benediction, and of course we know the rest of the story, when Lord Narasimha came and blew up his whole plan, because he couldn't conceive of some way to actually become eternal. The truth is, we are eternal. We are in a temporary body, and if we pass away, we still exist. We've always existed since the beginning of our birth. We've gone through all kinds of changes. If you go to your mom and find those baby pictures, you remember looking up in the kitchen. I remember looking up and seeing my mom cooking in the kitchen, right? So those days are gone. And, as time goes on, imperceptibly we become older, and the cheeks sag and the hair turns white and then falls off. But we're the same person. We are eternal. Okay, so that's the first lesson that Krishna is telling Arjuna for our sake, because Arjuna already knew these things. Okay. So the question is, what is good? Because the fact is, we don't know. We don't know the whole story. Okay? We're not God. We're not sitting in everyone's heart. So we don't know what's actually good for us. Okay? By nature, we want to enjoy. So we make a decision based on what we think is best for us. Suppose I'm doing something very nice for other people, but we get a feeling of happiness by, I'm this philanthropist, I'm helping people, I'm doing so many things, but the idea is that I'm going to get some aggrandizement, I get my 15 minutes of fame maybe, right? It's something for us, okay? So similarly, Arjuna is thinking, this is something for me. I'm going to enjoy this kingdom, but I'm not sure it's worth it. And he's hesitating. And Krishna is explaining, no, there's another plan. I have a superior plan. And basically, all our lives are under this greater plan. We are meant to be servants of Krishna and live in the eternal world serving Krishna. But we rebelled. And there's a lot of us, because we have free will. If there were no free will, there'd be no need to have a material world, because everybody would be forced, right? You love me or else, right? Okay, we don't have to love Krishna. But Krishna is the greatest of the great. So he can accommodate your desire. If you don't want to see him, poof, he'll disappear. But for a pure devotee, someone who wants to love Krishna, he can't get Krishna out of his mind. You ever been in love with somebody? You can't get them out of your mind. Everything reminds you of them. You just think about them all the time, how wonderful they are. So the real devotees of Krishna, like when Krishna was living in Vrindavan, in his hometown, his girlfriends were lamenting that they had eyelids. That when I blink my eyelids, I don't see Krishna for a few milliseconds. They didn't say it like that, but they were so much in love with Krishna, they couldn't. When Krishna left, they went mad. But their love was so strong, actually Krishna never left. So that's the real secret. So we're meant by our birth, by our existence, to be a devotee of Krishna, to love Krishna. He's the origin. He's our Father. There isn't anywhere that he isn't, right? He's wherever you want to be, he's there. But because we have this idea that somehow I'm going to enjoy matter, I'm going to be the Lord of matter. I'm the Lord of all our survey. Okay? So, in this world, we can dream like that. We're under a mass illusion. We believe that I'm doing something. I believe I'm sitting here and I'm moving around and I'm talking and you're listening and then, I'm in control, right? So we're always thinking I'm the doer, but actually Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that the conditioned soul believes that he's doing things which are actually being carried out by material nature. As myself, I'm not doing anything. I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I'm willing, but it's being carried out by nature. Okay? Some of us are talented in some way, some are talented in a different way. Animals are empowered to do things that we can't, like birds can fly, we can't. Okay? But it's all being supplied by Krishna, the Supreme Person. Okay? So, it's kind of like a masquerade game. We're masquerading as whatever body we have. Right? Oh, you look so ravishing. With that mask up there. Right? So, this is material life. We've created society and friendship and love and all of these wonderful things based on this body. Right? I am this, I am that, I'm American, I was born in this family, right, in this part of town, and my parents are this, and we have all these what they call designations. But we really don't know who we are because we've forgotten. And Krishna consciousness is the reawakening of our self, right? What is our real self? And then once you understand who yourself is, then you know what to do. Okay? If I'm part of Krishna, then it's my duty to serve Krishna. Just like the duty of my hand is to serve my body. The duty of my hand is to get food and put it in the mouth, and through the digestion process, the nourishment goes to my hand. It's a crude analogy, of course. But it's difficult for us to think because we're conditioned. We're so used to trying to be the center of attention, right? And if somebody comes along and says, well, Krishna's the center of attention, we should all be serving Krishna, that goes against the reason why we're here in the first place. Why we're here in this material world. Because we think that we can enjoy. When I was growing up, I remember my father was out in the yard and we were watering the garden. So I was, with the hose, I was hosing down the leaves. My father said, no, you have to get the root. Okay? So we're trying to enjoy without realizing that our real interest is in making Krishna enjoy. That's what we're missing. Okay? And no matter what you do in this world, no matter what you get, no matter what position you could think of, what possession, whatever it is you want, there's no full satisfaction. You can get what you want, but it won't satisfy you. And then it's go on to another thing, and then something else, and then something else, and something else. It never ends. And so it happens, our sojourn in this world. But once you come to Krishna consciousness, once you understand who you really are, and begin to feel and reciprocate with Krishna, then everything comes into place. Everything falls into place. You become happy. You don't need all these things. You don't need all this sense gratification. You don't have to have a big position. If you happen to have a big position, you can use it for Krishna. But we don't have to spend our life trying to find some solution to our problem by adjusting things in the material world. There's always going to be problems, there's always going to be disease, there's always going to be something going on. But because we are related to Krishna, then we feel, okay, in the end, everything's going to work out. Okay, right? So I'm going to read a little bit from the second chapter. Okay. Hang on. Okay. Krishna's talking about the soul. But I'm looking at a specific part. I'm sorry. So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, text 32, O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. If, however, you do not perform this religious duty of fighting, oh wow, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties, and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by so doing, you will never incur sin. Okay. So, thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruit or results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So, Krishna is explaining here that you have to do something. We have our duty. We have to take care of our families. You might have a job. You might have some obligations, maybe taking care of someone, a child, or maybe an elderly person. We have so many obligations in this world. Okay. It's not that we reject them. But it's like, Prabhupada give the example that if a woman in India, sometimes they take a pot and go to fetch some water. So along the way, they might be balancing this pot on their head, but they can do other things. So while we're doing our activities, the dedication is actually for Krishna. Okay? The result of our activities should go to Krishna. And that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. In the pretext of fighting for the sake of fighting, I mean, as a warrior, that's your duty. Okay? But just fighting for the sake of fighting, that's not necessarily Krishna consciousness. That's to do your duty in your life. But ultimately, our life is meant to be serving Krishna. Okay? So, it sounds contradictory. And that's why later on in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains about karma yoga. That you have to do something, but if you do it whimsically, or you do it without any understanding of what the work is for, then you haven't understood. Then you'll be subjected to good and bad, right? If you neglect your duty, telling Arjuna, if you neglect your duty, okay, you will incur sin for that. But ultimately, it's bhakti yoga is the highest, and Krishna explains that also. You can practice yoga, you can practice any kind of thing that you want, but ultimately, you have to become a devotee. That's what Krishna consciousness is all about. Okay, so we're not impractical. We have businesses, I have my own business, okay? But that's what I do to make a living. And Srila Prabhupada was like that too. He had a pharmaceutical business. But his real life is being a devotee, okay? So that's what we have to do. We have to do whatever is asked of us, but at the same time, we have to see whenever we get a chance to spread Krishna consciousness, whenever we get a chance, read about Krishna, talk about Krishna, try to enlighten someone. I had a discussion this afternoon with one of my clients. I'm a piano tuner. So it turns out he's a Christian. But his responses to me, if I didn't know better, I'd say he was a devotee. Right? We were talking about, what's good and what's bad. And in his Christian theology, just being a do-gooder, that's not good enough. In fact, he said it was like a dirty rag. Because, again, that's self-centered. We want to please God. We want God to be pleased. We want our activities to be pleasing to Krishna. There was a point in the battle of Kurukshetra, where Krishna told Arjuna's brother Yudhisthira to tell a lie. In his life, Yudhisthira had never, not once, told a lie. And so Krishna is telling him to tell a lie. And he hesitated. Well, how can I tell a lie? But that was the whole point. That it was Dronacharya, son, okay, he would, if he knew that his son had died, then he would become discouraged. So Asvatthama was his son. So Krishna told Yudhisthira to say, Asvatthama is dead. But Yudhisthira was so attached to being truthful that he actually incurred sin by hesitating, because he didn't want to do what Krishna was telling him to do. Although he knew Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Arjuna was different. Arjuna, there was a circumstance where Karna, who happened to be Arjuna's older brother, by the way, was fighting on the other side. So according to the law of fighting, if someone's at a disadvantage, you can't shoot him in the back, or so to speak. If you're on a chariot, you can fight with someone's on a chariot. If someone's on the ground, you have to get on the ground to fight them equally. But Karna got his chariot stuck in the mud. So Krishna said to Arjuna, kill him now. God himself, who is the personification of goodness, is telling Arjuna to kill Karna while he's not on his chariot. How is that? Okay. So Arjuna did that. And Karna's protesting, wait a minute, how can you shoot me? I'm on the ground. I'm pulling my chariot out of the mud. I got a towing service or something. But the point is that Arjuna surrendered, whereas Yudhisthira hesitated. And what happened was, Krishna told him, okay, when you say Asvatthama, in soft words, say the elephant. There was an elephant named Asvatthama. So he said, Asvatthama, the elephant, is dead. Okay, so it was a little workaround. Okay. So the point is that Krishna made that arrangement because Karna was actually a greater bowman than Arjuna. Karna was the greatest bowman on the planet. He was actually Arjuna's elder brother. Can someone tell me whether Arjuna knew that Karna was his older brother? Was he aware of it? I don't think he was at that time. I think later on, yeah. So Krishna made all these different arrangements. And again, Krishna told Arjuna, said, look, you can fight or not. All these warriors are already dead on both sides. Okay, so you can fight or not, take the credit. That was a side issue. The point is that Krishna wanted to rid the earth of all these demons, and this is how he was doing it. Put all these demons in one place and gone. Okay. So we may not know exactly. That's why we need a spiritual master to tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. We need Krishna or Krishna's representative. I can't just go out and kill people because I think, God spoke to me in a dream or something. Right? We might think, make up something that, But that's why we have to have a spiritual master. That's why we have a guide, someone who can enlighten us and tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Okay? And so that's if you become serious about Krishna consciousness, not everyone is ready to have a spiritual master. It's not like a fashion or a fad or something like that. If you're really serious about solving the problems of life, then you need a spiritual master. And if you accept someone as a spiritual master, it's not like, well, I accept you today, but tomorrow if I don't feel like it, then, take a hike. No, this is lifelong. It's not only lifelong, life after life long. The spiritual master is there, it's representing Krishna. And if you take initiation, the promise is that you will do everything that he says, and his promise is that I will take you back to Godhead. I would take you back to God. Okay, so this is very serious. So, anyhow, it's 6:45. Do we have some comments? Yes, Hare Krishna.
Is God good?
Is God good? That's a good question.
That lies at the heart of the matter.
Yes, is God good or not? Okay. Luckily he is. Lucky for us. We're very, very glad that he's not some cosmic tyrant that's, throwing thunderbolts and, torturing people. Everyone is part of Krishna. It's like if you have some part of your body, you're not against your toenail. I mean, everything is part of Krishna. And we're all conscious beings, and we have a relationship with Krishna. And he's trying to reestablish that relationship. He's trying to help us reestablish that relationship. So he loves everyone. So if you know all the secrets, sometimes we don't understand why things happen the way they do. I mean, even something like politics. Somebody gets into office promising, I'm going to do this, but then when they get into the position, they find they can't do it, because there are other things that they suddenly become aware of. Oh, I can't do it because, fill in the blank. So we may not understand, how is it that Arjuna had to kill Karna in that position? If you read the Mahabharata, which is the story leading up to the Battle of Kurukshetra, and afterwards, it's called the History of Greater India. You learn all the backstories, why this thing happened. It's so fascinating. It's just unbelievable how all these different people taking part in this battle, how their previous activities led up to what happened during the battle and how they were, situated. So we don't know everything. We're not sitting in the heart of everyone. I'm driving down the highway and I hate that guy who's driving so fast. Well, we don't know. Maybe he's got his pregnant wife in the car and they're going to the hospital. You don't know. because I'm envious and I don't like that, but I'm not God. So in this world, every human being anyway has got this law of karma. We've got what we've done before, and the circumstances that we're in our lives at every moment has everything to do with what we did before. So inconceivably, everything is all, like we talk about a matrix, we're all connected. And many people that we have in our life, we knew in a previous life. I've had many people that I've met that they look at me, I look at them, it's like, I know you. I've never met you before in my life, but you ever have that experience? It's amazing. But we've lived before. So now is the time. Prabhupada came here and disrupted everything. Okay? We all have our karmas and we're doing all these different activities. And Prabhupada comes along and says, okay, this karmic thing has got to stop. Now we're going to go back to Godhead. We're going to go back to Krishna. Yes, there are going to be some repercussions. We have to deal with things. The karma fan is still spinning, but it's not plugged in anymore. You chant Hare Krishna, all of your karma is getting, the plug is coming undone. But don't break the principles. Don't eat meat, don't gamble, don't have illicit sex, don't intoxicate yourself. And then all this karmic entanglement will stop. And this is what Srila Prabhupada brought to us. This is what is called Krishna consciousness. You dedicate your life to Krishna, even if it takes more than one lifetime. It might. But the goal is to serve Krishna. And we'll be completely happy. Yes?
I have a question along the same lines. Is it okay for us to judge Krishna according to our concept of what good is? The material standard of good, whatever that might be.
There are people who, the question is, should we be judging Krishna from our own point of view? We can't be in Krishna's position. We cannot imitate Krishna. If Krishna does something like, he has perhaps, what is it, 10,000, how many wives Krishna had?
16,108.
6,108. Can you do that? Can you lift the Govardhan hill on one finger? Take a few lifetimes in the gym, maybe. We cannot imitate Krishna. Krishna is all good. We cannot, from our point of view, judge what Krishna does. Okay? Because ultimately, whatever Krishna does, the result is good. But it may seem at the time we may not understand exactly why something is happening this way. We see some tyrant doing something, how could this happen if God is good? How can so many evil things happen in the world? What was with this guy Hitler, or Stalin, or Pol Pot, or how can these things happen if God is all merciful? We don't know the backstory, and Krishna does. So good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people because there's a history. And Krishna can do things, get so many things done at once, simultaneously. He's very clever. Okay, we can't judge Krishna from our own point of view because our point of view is from one person or maybe a group of people. But Krishna is good for everyone. And even if it means there's something terrible happening on the material plane, it's all temporary. We are eternal. He wants us back. I'll be back. Right? He wants us back. He wants us to serve him, and he knows that's the best thing. But He'll also allow us to fulfill our desires. And if you want to become a tyrant, and He can help you. We have independence. But at the same time, okay, then you're subject to reaction. You're subject to the result. So Krishna never does anything that's detrimental. It's always for the greater good. Yeah.
So you're saying that Krishna is beyond these good and bad materialistic definitions. He's transcendental.
Yes. Yes, that's a good way to put it. He's not within this world. And this world is good and bad and everything's relative. Want to elaborate? No? Yeah. So,
Hare
yeah,
Krishna,
yes.
Prabhu.
There's someone online? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Very nice class, wonderful class. Thank you so much. I would like to know if someone wants to buy Bhagavad Gita, is it available? How can someone buy this wonderful book?
So someone's going to have to, I have a hard time understanding. Maybe we can repeat.
The head of our Sankirtan department is right here, Govardhan Prabhu. He can talk about the book distribution.
Hare Krishna. If anyone doesn't have a Bhagavad Gita, you're missing out. So if you'd like a Bhagavad Gita, please speak to me or one of the temple residents, and we can arrange some Bhagavad Gitas in your hand.
Yeah.
We have it in a variety of languages too, including
In different
Hindi and
languages, yeah.
Spanish.
We have different language. What languages do we have? Spanish, obviously. But
Spanish, Hindi, Gujarati, Tamil, different languages.
Yeah.
I think we have Russian.
yeah, every human being should have access to Bhagavad Gita, as it is. All right, I think I've gone over the time. So,
Thank you, His Grace, Pavamana Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. So tonight's feast is sponsored, and so here's our treasurer and head